Ladies and gentlemen, it's an honor to address this audience. I'm really happy to be here. I've been supporting Friends of Spain from the very beginning, and I think the initiative could become a key element for strengthening Spain's reputation and image in Germany and possibly also in other countries. It is an elegant platform and door opener for discussion for all stakeholders involved, a very innovative public diplomacy tool, also an indirect lobbying tool, involving also civil society actors. And I think that's part of the beauty. It's also an experiment, and I think the experiment will be successful. In order to kick off the discussion on the German election and what that means for Europe and the Spanish-German relationship, in particular, I'd like to give you a brief analysis of the German election outcome. As you know, the election took place on the 22nd of October, only 3.5 weeks ago, and you are all aware that Chancellor Merkel won a stunning victory, but lost her coalition partner, the FDP, which is a very pro-market oriented party. Here we go. So I would like to present to you some numbers. You see here on the left-hand side the column of the Christian Democratic parties. They gained 7.7% in votes, whereas the Liberal Party crushed down to 4.8%, not getting beyond the 5% threshold. The SPD more or less remained stable in this area, and the left lost some votes, and the Green Party as well. And the AfD, which is a Eurosceptic party, which was only invented, so to speak, very recently, in February, I think, this year, is shortly below the 5% threshold. So why did Angela Merkel win? I think this is a question that is of interest to you. First of all, the key argument here is that Germany's economic performance was key. 75% of Germans are content with their personal, individual economic situation. Unemployment is at a 2-decade low. Moreover, there is her policy style. It's very presidential, it's comforting, analytical, pragmatic, very importantly, it's unpretentious, and down to earth. And Germans like this kind of attitude. In terms of euro policy, people know that the euro might cost money, but Merkel seemed to be the best available person to defend Germany's and Europe's interest without damaging European integration, because Germans still favor very much European integration. Her critics accuse her of a lack of strategic vision and a technocratic understanding of Europe, but people trust her. That's the bottom line. Germans trust Angela Merkel. And finally, one reason why she won is the weakness of other parties. The FDP was destroyed, kind of. The SPD continues to be relatively weak. The Greens are in crisis, and the AfD didn't make it. So what do the results mean? Obviously, a historic victory for Angela Merkel and the Christian Democrats. The Chancellor is strengthened in her European policy and at the height, if you want, of her power at the moment. A disaster for Merkel's coalition partner, FDP. Of course, the only German, as I said, clearly pro-business party is not in the parliament for the first time since 1949, when Germany was founded. The AfD, a new Eurosceptic party mentioned earlier, is the second big winner, even if they did not make it into the parliament. Its success serves as a warning to established parties that transfer union steps meet resistance. A red-green coalition which would be possible was outruled by the SPD and the Green Party before the election, so this is not a serious option. And you might say that European leaders that aim for a soft German fiscal policy and more tolerance for deficit spending will see some relief in the outcome. For the weeks ahead, expect a long and bumpy road to the next German government coalition with lots of noise and also conflicting statements. And let's have a look at the two realistic scenarios which are there. These are the players I introduced to you. The first scenario has a clear majority. The Christian Democrats, together with the Social Democrats, display more of 2/3 of the constituency, and the opposition here is very small, which, from a democratic point of view, can be seen also skeptically. So the first scenario is very well liked by the Germans. More than 60% of Germans wanted, according to latest polls. There are currently consultations, only consultations, no official negotiations. Merkel, which is interesting to keep in mind, made very good experiences when she governed with the SPD from 2005 to 2009. Merkel already adopted also many of the social policies of the SPD, so there is a common ground if you want. She also ended universal military conscription at up and down nuclear power. And both parties, CDU and SPD, have an absolute majority in the upper house. The Bundesrat approval is needed for many important policy measures, so that is important. Also, the SPD is loyal to Europe. A 2/3 majority is needed for changes in European treaties, so the SPD would be of help here. But the SPD is also reluctant currently because it suffered from the last cooperation with the union parties and was punished by the voters, even though they did a pretty good job, as many observers would say. Thus, there's a pressure from the left wing of the SPD to reject the participation in the government. There will be a SPD party convent, meaning the party delegates, the party members. They will make a final decision over the negotiated coalition treaty. So the outcome is still a little uncertain. And then we have the second scenario, the Christian Democrats joining forces with the Greens. And here you see there is a clear majority, a bigger opposition, a stronger opposition, which is probably better for democracy. But it is a relatively unlikely scenario. We shouldn't rule that out, but according to recent rumors, there is more support for a grand coalition. There are also cultural differences here between the Christian Democrats and the Greens. They're significant, although the Green leadership retired and the younger CDU generation is more favorable of the Green Party, but the 50-plus generation and the Greens don't get along very well. The party programs are quite different, but a coalition would provide both parties with new strategic options for partnerships in the future. And generally speaking, the Greens have to decide whether they want to continue to position themselves left of the Social Democrats or whether they want to move more to the middle in the future. Because 4 years ago, the Greens were more moderate than today. So there was an interesting shift on the Green Party more to the left recently. Now I'd like to present you with a wish list, if you want, of the SPD and Green Party, which would make ruling for Mrs. Merkel quite difficult. Both parties are demanding, for example, minimum wages, no matter which regions and branches businesses are operating in. They're further demanding lower retirement age, less flexible employment schemes, women's quota in business leadership positions, higher top income taxes and capital gains taxes, higher energy prices probably, tougher financial regulation, particularly against shadow banks, for example, hedge funds or private equity, as they are portrayed successfully as scapegoats for financial crisis in Germany. Solidary pension theme, abolition of private child care benefit. So not all of this, of course, will become law, but there will be compromises, of course, and compromises which may not increase Germany's competitiveness. What will happen over the next weeks? There's a bumpy road ahead. We are currently seeing that the parties are sorting themselves out internally and licking their wounds. 4 top Green leaders have resigned already. And Greens and SPD have to sort out minimum demands, red lines for talks with the Christian Democrats. The Bundestag will have to assemble on the 22nd of October, latest. Until then, Merkel's current coalition serves as a caretaker. And negotiations about forming a new coalition could, however, extend many more weeks, even until Christmas. Nobody knows at this point. There will be big challenges for Germany in the years to come. Just to name a few: energy security, the management of the radical move towards renewables. We call that Energiewende. Power grids, should they be centralized, decentralized, energy costs. Then we have a problem with the shortage of skilled labor in Germany. We need IT professionals, people in the area of natural sciences, engineers. You might be surprised to hear that in a country like Germany, we need engineers. Education, still there is a high correlation between social status of parents and the likelihood that kids do well in school. We have an aging population, demography, integration of immigrants needs to be improved. There's a poor upward mobility in our society. Data protection, also very general questions in terms of foreign policy. Should German foreign policy be more assertive? Should we participate in out-of-area action? So do we have a strong commitment for security? Should we be an exporter of security? So lots of open questions. The impact of the election on Europe is clearly to be seen in the fact that Germany will continue to be pro-European. Expect no major changes in Germany's European Euro policy. Germany remains committed towards Europe and the Euro, but because of probably more leftist policies, we can expect a higher tolerance towards countries that break the Maastricht deficit criteria. We might see more acceptance of stimulus packages, a more Keynesian approach, transfer union, no Eurobonds, but possibly some sort of compromises. The Eurosceptic AfD result is a warning sign if bailouts will cost money. And given party ideological and personal conflicts within the two potential coalition partners of the Christian Democrats and the enormous challenges Germany is facing, I predict the next German government to be less stable. Relatively speaking. A few words on Mrs. Merkel's strategy for the euro. Merkel wants to reverse the root problem of the eurozone. It was created among economies with vastly different levels of competitiveness and fiscal culture and economic strength, of course. So a new level playing field is needed. But a comprehensive concept to achieve this is not there yet. What remains at this point is Germany's dual strategy, fight against too much public spending, A, and B, a strengthening of competitiveness, growth in Southern Europe. Merkel will keep demanding reforms in France, Spain, Italy to make them more competitive. In her eyes, they hold the key to solve the euro crisis, not Berlin. Fourth, bilateral relationship management. Merkel needs to work closely with France, the German-Franco axis. She will seek to keep the United Kingdom in the European Union and have Poland adopt the euro. In respect with Greece, there will probably some kind of public haircut inevitable that will cost Germany money, but will probably come in disguise and rather small servings. Ireland, Portugal have to cut debt in next years too, according to the German government, and will cost German taxpayers money, but so far 80% of MPs have voted for Europe. And Spain, we will discuss this in a few minutes. My personal experience is that I'm often asked, well, what do Germans think of the Spanish problems here? And I'm always saying, you know, we are looking very much in Germany towards Greece and Italy, and we don't have any problems with you because the reputation of Spain and Germany is extremely high. So there's a solid basis to build on. A few words on Merkel's agenda that might be of interest also for Spain to watch. There's the general question, of course, of intergovernmentalism versus supranational style, or should we have a focus on nation states or further integration? It seems that the only institutional reform to come soon is the banking union. German approach here is Europe needs to consolidate first before becoming more integrated. Then the banking union, you might elaborate on that, but the legal basis is to be created in 2014, but will not be effective before the end of the decade. Debt redemption fund, unlikely, probably unconstitutional in Germany. Continued key role for the ECB and Mario Draghi, whatever it takes. Draghi said that changed the game, of course. Do we see the Eurobonds? Not before 2020. Merkel pledged this for SPD and Greens being quiet on the issue. And the EU needs, in Merkel's eyes, a full fiscal and economic union first. Public investments, in what ways can Germany help Spain in fighting unemployment through EIB and bilateral initiatives, for example? You've probably all heard by now about the vocational school system in Germany, which might be attractive for Spain, but which is, from a cultural point of view, extremely difficult, I think, to implement, but maybe it's worth an effort. So I think it would be wonderful to think about a common Spanish-German project. It will be difficult to identify probably, but maybe that is one of the questions that can be addressed here in the panel. So I would like to hand it over to you. Thank you very much.